Welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here, I'm going to show you guys how to remove some paint defects. So if you've painted a panel and you get a little bit of a run and you get a bit of dust and stuff like that, I'm going to show you guys how to remove them and to polish up a black panel to perfection, or close there enough to anyway. So you can see just off that body line there through the hood, the paint's just started running. Now, I've been doing this for 15 years. I still get runs every now and then. A couple of contributing factors as to why that's happened. A new gun. This is actually the first job I ever did with a new Jet 5000, and I really wasn't ready for how much of a cannon that thing was. It totally pumps the paint on. But not to worry, it's also cooling down a bit. So when the weather gets a bit cooler, the paint's not drying as quick, so it's going to stay wet for a bit longer and more chance of having those little runs come up. But not to worry. The main thing is that you know how to fix it, and also the right way to go about fixing it. Sometimes you're better off just saying, you know what, that needs repainting, but for this job I decided I'd be able to save it, and it gave me something to do while the rest of the body of the car was drying. So I painted this panel and the bumper bar and one of the fenders off the car the previous night, and while the body was drying on this day, I was able to polish the bonnet up, and I didn't have much downtime at all. So this is a bit of a revision of a trick that some of you guys may have already seen. I've got another video that's been quite popular called Amazing Trick for Removing a Paint Run. It's one of my older videos. I think that while it's still a good video, I could have included a little bit more information in it. So what I've done is mixed up my 2-pack fine filler. You could replace that just by any normal bog, obviously with hardener in it. And then I've just let that dry down really nice. It turns out I probably could have let it dry down even a touch longer, because when I started sanding it, ended up losing adhesion and it was just peeling back. But not to worry, the end result is still fine. And there was another one over the other side, but it just wasn't big enough to warrant putting any of this fine filler in. However, basically what this is doing is allowing you to rub down the high spot of the run while the fine filler is protecting either side of it. So sometimes anyone who's tried sanding runs out will know that what will happen is you're sanding the run down, but you're also sanding either side of the run down, which is where you will actually cut through, not where the run itself is. This method isn't the best way to do it every single time. It's usually in these sort of hard to get to corners and stuff like that. If it was on a flat panel, I probably wouldn't do it. I'd probably just get my heat lights onto it, dry it right out, get a razor blade or even my little tungsten denibbing block, and that would usually suffice to remove the run. So it's not an absolute, it's not everything would I even think about doing this technique on. But it's one technique that never ceases to amaze me. It's got me out of trouble quite a few times, and I've saved a few apprentices' asses over the years as well. I've had many a bosses, many a foremans, and just guys on the workshop floor that always come to me when I'm in the workshop. They're like, hey Gunman, you've got to come and help me on this job here. I've got a paint run and you're the best at doing it. Why am I the best at doing it? Because I've had a hell of a load of runs over my time, and I'm not ashamed of that. The way I see it, if you don't get a run every now and then, you're either not trying hard enough or you're not putting it on wet enough. So yeah, all it means is that you're trying. I'm not ashamed of getting a run every now and then. Once you start getting it in every single job and you're not correcting your mistakes, well then maybe that would be an issue, but you've got to learn from those mistakes. And yeah, as I said before, it's always coming into the winter, into the colder months. You're not prepared for it, you're just going along, and this was like the first cold week that we had. You know, it was sort of probably about 10 to 15 degrees in the booth, so it's definitely a little bit colder than the sort of 25, 30, 40 degrees that I'm used to, but not to worry. So, okay, basically the way you've got to do this is you can't just start sanding it with 1200 grit. It's just not going to cut the run down enough. I've even cut these down with say 320 sometimes, but as you saw there, I'm using 400, and I do prefer to do this stage wet. However, you guys will be able to see in a few minutes. I'm going to finish it all off dry, and I'm going to take you guys through my polishing techniques and exactly the polishes I use and also the orbital sander that I've got with the Kovax pads. They're pretty awesome. I really do highly recommend using it, and they are quite expensive, but all it takes is for a job not to be have to polish, repolished again the next day, and you'll save that money back anyway. So just continuing on with that block, just blocking it right down. As you can see, it is sort of lifting up that filler a bit, but it's still serving its purpose. Most of it's still protecting the surrounding areas, so I'm not going to be cutting through too much. Don't be afraid, you know, you've still got to get the run out. If this had been, say, a Mercedes-Benz right in the middle of a panel or door panel or something like that, there's really got to be, you know, a dead flat panel, but with still a little bit of orange peel on it, I'd probably just paint it again. But look, the final product with this is totally fine. I actually don't even care. If anyone out there wants to hit the thumbs down button on this, go for it. You're not going to faze me at all. If you want to tell me I'm a hack and I don't know what I'm doing, I don't care, because I know that I know what I'm doing. Like, I've got my own workshop, I've got my own customers, and this customer was totally wrapped with the way this come up. So this is the one on the other side. As you saw, I didn't end up putting the fine filler into it. I'm just blocking it straight up with the 400, and then we'll take it down through the grades up to something that'll be able to be polished up quite easily. So obviously, if you miss any of those 400 grit scratches, you'll just never polish them out. You just be polishing and polishing, cutting and cutting, and you might think that you've got them out. You come back the next day, and yeah, you'll see big sanding scratches left in there. So you can also see here, you're able to, even though it's sanded down, you'll still most likely be able to get just a little bit of a gloss off that panel, so you can see where you're at without actually polishing it up. That's another good tip. Once you started polishing, you really don't want to be doing any more sanding. All it ends up doing is clogging up that sandpaper, and it's just a nightmare. And when these things here, they're about $1 to $2 each. I can't remember exactly what they work out to, but I think they're about $80 for one box. So yeah, they're really not cheap. So there's a bit of a look at the range. So the yellow ones here, Kovax Bufflex, and pause it there and check out that part number there if you want, and you can get yourself one of them. We got that through our paint supplier, Jeff, from Park Automotive here in Perth. He looked after it with us, and he just gave it to us at cost price. So it's been really good for us setting up our new business. He's been the only one who actually looks after us. He's been doing some good deals for us and stuff like that just to get us set up. So yeah, $400 I paid for that, and that was the full kit. So that was with the yellow ones, which you see here, are the 1500. You've also got the green and the black ones. They don't actually say the grit on them, but I would be guessing that the green ones are about 2,500 and the black ones are probably about 3,500. So by the time you go over them with 3,500, it really doesn't take long to cut up. But sometimes I do just go over them with the green ones, which is about 2,500, and usually that polishes up nice. So another advantage of doing it dry is all you have to do is just grab that rag or grab an air line with a high pressure blower on it, and you'll actually still be able to see if there's any of those the deeper 400 grit scratches left. And look, when it gets to the point you need a new piece, just throw a new piece on. Don't be too much of a tight ass about it, you know. The way I see it, I've always looked at it like this, and now I'm even running my own shop. A piece of sandpaper only has a certain life span on it. Once you try pushing it too far, you end up getting little pigtails, and then you'll have troubles when you're trying to polish. So you actually end up digging little pigtails into the paint itself, which will be pretty difficult to polish out. So I did end up having quite a few different paint defects in this single panel. That one little patch that you can see just in the center of the bonnet there, or the hood as my American viewers may call it, that little patch there was a bit of a silicone hole that opened up. So all I did there, I just got a bit of clear coat, dabbed it in there with a touch-up brush, and then just let it dry overnight, because I got to it the previous night, which is always a good idea when you find those silicone holes. It gives it overnight to cure up. If not, you could also just whack the heat lights on it to help it dry out. And then I just sanded that back with the tungsten block here to start off with, and then I also hit it with the 400 grit too, just to knock it back down really nice and flat. As I said before, if you hit it with the finer grits to start off with, you're really just not taking enough meat off the paint, and you're not going to knock it back flat enough. So look, we've even got little, well, quite big bits of stuff, junk, shit we call it in Australia, and yeah, I'm just using this tungsten block. I'm not sure about the availability worldwide. However, in Australia, if you look on eBay, you'll be able to find one of these, and they're quite widely used in most auto body shops. They're called a tungsten denibbing block, and if you search one of them, you should be able to find it. So there you go, just knocking the high spot off, because again, if you hit it straight with, say, 1500 grit, you might think you've got rid of it, and then you polish it up, and then you're left with a bit of a high spot. So this is actually removing the worst of the high spot before you start sanding it. I don't really recommend polishing just straight off the tungsten block. However, you can do it, but you can usually still see a little bit of a imperfection there. So it is advised that you do sand it down. And next up, I'm just going over the rest of the hood to find out where the rest of my little, the smaller bits of dust were. And a good way of doing that is just rubbing your hand over it, because your hand will feel any high spots. And that just lets you know where to sand and polish and use your tungsten block. This hood also had a bit of solvent pop in it, because I did pump that clear on too heavy. So yeah, all I ended up doing for that was just giving it a quick buzz over with the 1500 grit, just a quick sand over, and then also hit it with the 2500 grit, which was those green ones, and then we'll hit it with the buff and cut and polish it up. It even turned out that even this one, like, I thought I'd had it polished up pretty nice. There was one spot that I did see the previous day, but then the next day we come in and there was one or two spots where we still had to re-polish it. And look, don't be ashamed of that, it's just going to happen, especially on a black. Basically, you won't see it on a white, you won't see it on a silver, you won't see it on most colours, but just most of those darker colours, because they're going to reflect the light a lot more, you're actually able to see any defect in the clear coat. So that's another thing I might make a quick mention to. If anyone out there is wanting to, say, paint a black car, and they want to do it, say, a solid black, and they're not sure whether or not they should do it in just 2K black, or whether or not they should do it in clear over base, I highly recommend using clear over base, because it's a lot easier to polish, it's not as messy, it goes on a lot nicer. I find you can get a better finish with your clear than what you can your 2K. So yeah, I do usually recommend using clear over base, and anyone who's seen the HQ Holden Ute restoration that I've done, I did that in clear over base for exactly that reason. It's a lot easier to polish. So as you can see here, I'm just going back over the top of all of those denibs, all those bits of dust that I found, and just sanding them down prior to going over the entire thing to remove that little bit of solvent boil that I did have. So basically, when I'm polishing a panel that has a few defects in it, as this one did, basically what you're going to do, or what I like to do anyway, I head for the worst affected area first. So the runs. The runs is where you run the risk of cutting through your clear coat to your base coat, and if you've done that, you've got to repaint the panel. Next up was the bits of dust, and obviously, as you saw, the second part I did actually was the silicone hole, which I was happy with how that came up. I must have just forgot to hit record, so I do apologise about skipping out that step. However, I do have another video which goes right through how to remove silicone holes. So I did the silicone holes after the runs, I then did the bits of dust, and next up, which I'm doing now, is just removing that little bit of solvent pop that I had coming up. Basically, why did that happen? Because I put the clear coat on a touch too heavy. Why did I do that? Probably because I was trying to fill up a few bits of dust in my clear coat. So there's another little bit of troubleshooting, which if it works, it can work quite well. So sometimes you'll get nice clean base coat, or it looks like your base coat's nice and clean. You then go and put a couple of coats of clear on, or your first coat of clear on, you'd be like, oh wow, there's dust and crap all through it. So how do you fix that? You let that first coat of clear dry out nice, like say 10-15 minutes, and then you just smash that second coat of clear on. But you do run the risk of having solvent pop and runs, so you really just got to know your limits, and yeah, test your limits. Hey, get a run every now and then, get some solvent pop. It's the only way you're going to learn. I'm not gonna tell you off for doing it. So yeah, as you can see, just went over it with the 1200 first, and then going over it with the finer discs. they're basically color coded, as I mentioned before. And in between, when you're doing any dry sanding, it's always a good idea to keep it nice and clean in between stages, just so you can see exactly what you're doing, what you have done, what you haven't done. Another good idea is to stay away from those edges, the spots where you can sort of cut through. You can see there's a few edges where I decided there was no need to actually sand it down. Look, as far as the solvent pop goes, it may not have been 100% necessary to sand the entire panel down. You can sometimes actually just bring it up with a good buff, get a nice amount of heat into it with the buff, and it'll pop those air bubbles, which is basically all solvent boil is. You're basically trapping the solvents in there. The paint is going hard before the solvents had the chance to actually evaporate out of the paint, so you've trapped them in there and they've turned into tiny little air bubbles. But 99% of the time it's savable in the real world. So there you go, I'm pretty happy with how that's come up. I'm not able to see any of those runs. There's a tiny little bit that you can still see, but it's totally acceptable. The owner of this car jumped onto our business Facebook page. He was so happy with it. He gave us 5 stars and he liked all our posts, and he was really so happy with it. We did this at a decent price for him, but we were also still able to make money. It was a private job. He may not have had insurance, I don't know, but this car hit a kangaroo. He provided all the panels for us. We just painted them all up, did a little bit of remove and refit, and the finished product come up really quite well. I've had a few American guys following me through Instagram and stuff like that, and they just saw it and they're like, what the hell is that? I see a Ford badge, but they've never seen anything like it. So what this car is, it's a BA Ford Falcon. It's an Australian built utility, or a ute, pickup, otherwise known in the US, I think. I think it's 4-litre engine, 260 kilowatt turbo on it, so bit of a beast. And the color code for this is ST. It's Silhouette Black Pearl, so it's got a little bit of blue pearl in it as well. It's a pretty nice color out there in the sun. So just onto this cutting stage. You really need to get a nice amount of heat into it. Even using those pads that I did use that do take it down quite fine, you still need to cut it right up. You can't just wave that buff over there and expect that it's going to look really nice and shiny. You have sanded right into that clear coat, and you need to remove all of those sanding scratches with the compound. So you may have picked up that I showed you a quick look at the cutting compound which I'm using here. It's Juice Super C. It is one of the best cutting compounds on the market. I've found less chance of getting any cut back and shrink back than some of the other ones on the market. Freckler is quite a good one, but this was a perfect job for me to actually get an example of how good the Freckler is compared to the Super C. Now, my mate was over the other side of the car, and he was cutting the roof on this car, because we painted and repaired the roof for this guy as well. And I just decided to grab the G3, so I didn't grab my mate's polish, and it really took a long time to cut up, and it just didn't cut it up. So I ended up grabbing the Super C back, and it just cut it up really quickly. You do have to be careful. You will get swirl marks, because obviously the coarser the compound, the more it's going to be aggressive and it's going to cut into it. So you then must give it a really good go over with the swirl remover after that. So yeah, just keeping it clean, making sure I'm happy with the progress, and as you'll notice, I hit the polish on those runs first to make sure I was happy with them. If you weren't happy with them, the best way to do it is just to get some wax and grease remover, remove all the greasy stuff from and the fillers and all that kind of stuff from that polish, and then give it another sand, but it will still clog those papers up from my experience anyway, and that's when it starts getting expensive. It's not when you're sanding over the fresh clear coat that you start ripping through the sandpapers. It's when you just sanding over the fresh polish. But I was quite happy with how it's coming up. Those runs are all but gone. There was a little one up the back of the hood on this side, but you can barely even see it. If you didn't know it was there, no one but a painter would pick it, put it that way, and I'd be happy with it even if it was on my car. A little bit of extra paint, no extra charge, that's the way I see it. And yeah, I just leaving in a little bit of the footage. I have edited this entire video down, and it still did. I think this is, yeah, definitely my longest video. So I know I've got a lot of people that actually seem to prefer my longer videos. So that's one thing, that starting out doing these videos, I tried to keep them to 6 minutes or something like that, thinking that, you know, you might lose interest after a few minutes. But I've had some people say say that they'd happily have me upload unedited and raw footage, which I'm not going to do. I like to keep my videos quite professional, give as much info as I can along every step of the way. So yeah, basically this probably took about half an hour just buffing, just on the cutting compound. So I did have to edit a lot of that out. Otherwise it would just get quite boring just watching me running the buff over the car. You do have to be careful. Sometimes if you generate too much heat, you can end up warping the panel. But from my experience, unless it's an aluminium panel, 99.9% of the time when you cool it down, like, don't panic, don't be like, oh no, I've warped the panel and I put a low spot into it. Just get your air blower or a bucket of water and just cool it back down. It will usually just pop straight back out if you do have that happen. How do I know? Because I've done it before. And that's the way you can get good at stuff. Basically, you can stuff it up and then, yeah, learn how to fix it up. So it's coming along. It's still not done. Still far from done. Many more minutes on that buff, but as you see, I just went over and finished it off. And then once I did finish it off, once it's all, when you think it's all cut, go over it again. So that's what I'm doing here, just going over the entire thing again, start to finish again. And as I said, we even come back in the morning, there was 1 or 2 little spots that still needed polishing. It's just the nature of the beast. It's just black. Anyone who's done this kind of thing will know exactly what I'm talking about. No need to feel ashamed that it happened. I'll give you guys a bit of a look at the car at the very end too, out in the sun. Come up real nice, and even give you guys a bit of a listen to the engine. Got my mate to give it a bit of a rev up for you guys, for the car fans. So this is my second step. I'm using the 3M final glaze there. So that's a swirl remover, and I use that with the black pad. When I was doing my cutting, it was one of those orange pads. It's basically all it is. It's got they're foam pads, and the black pad's got a finer foam in it, and the orange or white pads, they've just got a coarser foam, and that's all it is. So it's just less likely to leave any swirl marks behind. Now, some people have watched a few of my other videos and been like, oh, you're a hack, you can't just put the stuff straight onto the panel. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I've been doing it my entire career and it works just fine. I think they saw me doing it with the Roops Bigfoot, and when you hit a bit of polish with that Roops Bigfoot, it's actually more likely to make it spray all over the place. But all you have to do is you just lift the edge of your buff up and then put it down onto the spot that you've applied onto the panel, and I find it really doesn't make that much spray. And yeah, rather than putting it onto your pad, it's just as likely to spray all over the place when you're using the rotary buff anyway. I don't actually have a Roops Bigfoot polisher anymore at my new workshop, so as I did mention in those previous videos, if you don't have one, you can actually do it with a orbital sander, and that's exactly how I'm going to be doing it in this video here. An orbital sander is a lot cheaper than one of those Roops Bigfoot polishers. They're about $500. They are a bit better because they go on a bigger orbit, so less chance of getting swirls, but the orbital sander can get pretty fine results. A big thing is important to keep those pads of yours clean. I always get an air blower and give them a good blowout. If they've got any sort of dry chunks left in them, I'll take them outside and wash it out, even just with a bit of car wash or a bit of soapy water, and then give it a good thorough rinse out, because you don't want any of that soap or anything left in the pad. or water for that matter, like if there's any little bit of water left in that pad when you're polishing, it actually breaks that polish down, and it doesn't just stop it from working properly, it also makes it a hell of a lot harder to clean off. I've gone through many different polishing methods over the years. When I was actually taught, like the guy that taught me, he taught me to cut with water, and I soon learned that it wasn't actually the best way of doing it. It does, it's not the best way of doing it, so I don't recommend even using any water when you're cutting or polishing. So I hope I have managed to keep you guys interested up to this point anyway. Yet again, as always on these long videos, I do apologise if I have repeated myself. It is a little bit difficult to try and come up with something fresh to say every single minute, but I do my best, as you guys always know. And I'd like to say a big thank you to all of my supporters, because I've just recently made it to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So big thanks to you guys. Without you guys, it wouldn't be what it is today. I probably would have given up a long time ago if you guys hadn't have been there with the continued good comments, likes, support, shares, and all that cool stuff. So yeah, just thanks again. So just about finishing off this swirl removing step. This is a 3M brand. There's so many different like brands of polishes and stuff like that. There's loads of good ones, and there's a few not so good ones out there, but look, it's just whatever works for you, whatever you prefer, and yeah, there's no real right or wrong. It's not like sort of when you're painting, like if you're using DuPont base coat, you'd probably really want to use DuPont clear coat, you know. It's not so much the case when you're doing polishing. You can chop and change and mix them and put one over the top of the other and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see here, it's coming up nicely. But if I was to take that outside into the natural sunlight, you would actually see loads of swirl marks all through it. So it really does still need the final polish with this. This polish here is great. It's only going to work on blacks. It won't work on just about any other colour, any real dark colours. So if it was like a really, really dark blue or something like that, you might still be able to use it. The T57, the Gelson here. Yeah, any light colours. It's just because the polish itself is black. So it's kind of, I think it's cheating a little bit, because it's putting black into the, if there was any swirl marks or any scratches, it's actually filling that up with a piece of black polish. So I've never owned a black car, nor would I ever own a black car. I don't know many painters who would ever paint their car black. I know painters would paint it just about any other colour but black, and that's just for the polishing reason. They're so hard to keep clean, and they're a total bastard to polish, but they do look good when they're nice and clean. I've actually heard, I was reading in the newspaper years ago, that the best resale value on a car is number one is silver and the second one is black. So there you go. Obviously lots of people do like them, however spray painters hate them. So just going over the entire hood just with the orbital sander that I was mentioning before. And that's just a Velcro pad. You get them sort of ranging from $15 to $30 for the pad that I put on, and that just fits onto the normal orbital sanding pad. And basically what it's doing, because your buff is rotary, it spins around in circles. This is orbital, so it sort of moves in every different direction on an orbit, and hopefully that the idea is that will remove the swirls. Never used to do it this way. When I started out, we used to just sort of, at final stage, it's just by hand. You just get a nice cheesecloth or something like that, or just a nice soft cotton cloth, and then apply your wax with that in a circular motion, and then wipe off in a straight motion, sort of linear motion in the direction of the car. That's something that I was taught by another guy. He said, you shouldn't wipe your polish off in circles, because that will actually sort of put more swirls into it. But you can do what you want, whatever works for you. You know, if you find rubbing in circles works for you, go for it. If you get the results you want, who am I to tell you? These videos are just hopefully able to give you guys a couple of tips on improving your paintwork. I'm not making these vids to try and prove a point, to try and prove to you guys that I'm the best painter and I never get runs and I never get solvent boil and I never get anything wrong, because hey, I'm just like anyone, I guess. I'm a human being and I make mistakes, but as I said before, it's not about making those mistakes, it's about knowing how to fix them. So I've already, what I just spotted then was a little bit up the very front of the hood where I was probably going a little bit soft with the cutting stage. However, I didn't decide to fix it as yet because I thought I'd leave it overnight. Usually you're going to have a couple more spots come up. They did, and we gave them a quick polishing the following day. We gave the entire car a full cut and polish. So what did we paint on it? We painted both fenders, front bumper, bonnet, blend on the driver's side front door. We also did a repair on that one too, and repair the roof as well, and cut and polish detail the rest of the car. So as you can see there, it's coming up quite nice. There's a few spots that still need wiping off and stuff like that, but coming up quite nice. Right at the back there, if you've really got a keen eye there, you can just see it just started to flow down, but sort of the eye tricks it, and it sort of just looks like it's the return of the panel anyway, so I decided just to leave that spot. I was happy enough with it. You got to know where to draw the line, or you could just be working on these cars for days and days and days. Considering the condition that the car came in and the way it went out, I was quite happy with it. Owner was happy with it. My business partner was happy with it. Everyone was happy. Made ourselves a couple of $1,000 out of it too. So I decided to leave in a little bit more of the inspection, so the final look over and stuff like that, because sometimes I get people and they're like, on my last video that I made where I removed that rain, he goes, oh, you just skimmed over it quickly, it's like you try and hide it from us and blah blah blah, all that. So I'm just including all this footage, and you can't say that I tried hiding anything. Yeah, so there you go. And plus to some of the people who want to learn that little bit extra, and then it just includes a little bit more for you guys too. So you can see it's got a really nice gloss level to it there, and this is prior to giving it that one extra polish the following day. So it looks a bit like a sheet of glass and a mirror finish on it. So if you hang around for a few more minutes, I'm going to actually include a little bit more footage on the rest of the job as well. The repairing stage, priming stage, blocking, sanding, just a bit of an overview, I guess. The way I see it, if you've watched this much, you may as well, you're obviously interested in the job, and I'll show you the rest of it. I'm not sure if I'll make another video on this one itself, because so many cars that I do, everyone wants to see certain things painted, and yeah, I can't make videos on everything. But this one I just decided to focus on the polishing stage. So there you go, my mate's got the black pad back out. He quickly ran over one or two spots with the cut and polish, the cut first, and then ran the black pad over, and then we just went around and did the entire car with the orbital sander with that T57 again. And I was just following him around with one of the microfiber cloths. These microfiber cloths, I would say these days, are a bit of a must. They're inexpensive. I think I picked up a pack of 12 for around $10 or $20 from Super Cheap Auto. So I've found here in Australia, Super Cheap Auto is actually the cheapest. You'll even find them. Like, no one else sells them any cheaper. You go everywhere else and they just charge a very high price, whereas Super Cheap have got the best price in town. Most body shops I've ever worked at even use the Super Cheap ones. It's cheaper to send someone down, buy a couple of packs, than what it is to order it through the paint supply companies. So you don't want to keep using them for too long. Some people try washing them, and I just find that they're never the same once they've been dirty. You try cleaning them and they just sort of break the pad down a little bit. So there's another look at that T57 we're using. So the roof sort of, I don't know what happened to it, but it nearly looks like someone's jumped on it before it came in. We decided the best way to do it was, and quickest and easiest way to do it, was just to go over the top of the original paint and just use fine filler. You're not meant to use normal bog over the top of paint, so that's why we decided to use the extra fine polyester filler. You shouldn't have any adverse effects with shrink back and stuff like that, because they've got a good primer. Left it overnight and then sanded it down. So here's a bit of a look over the entire job. That door was damaged quite bad. The entire thing just in that front section was all caved in on the intrusion bar. So I got my good little spot puller out and I pulled out the worst of the low spots and then filled it up, and as you can see on the roof there, I just filled that up with my my worst polyester filler. Then pulled it in the booth, given it a good few coats of primer, 4 over any filler repairs, and then just 2 over the entire roof. And as you can see here, the next day I still wasn't quite happy with how I'd done that line, so I decided to rework it a bit and just put a bit of 1K primer over the top of that, and I was happy with the way that came up. Then got it out in the sun there, picked up a couple of stone chips in that fender there. It's cooling down a bit over here in Perth, as I made a mention to earlier, so what I was actually doing there is giving it a bit of a preheat while there was a bit of sun. Ambient temperature was probably about only 10 to 15 degrees, so I thought, well, while I was doing a few other things, I'd put it in the sun and let it warm up, get a bit of warmth into those panels before I started painting. Brought it in, given it a good mask up, wiped it all down with wax and grease remover, put my base coat on, and a couple of coats of clear, and job done. Come in the next day and that's when we fitted the rest of it up and polished it up too. So that was the gun I used for the base coat, the SGK 600BV, also known as the FLG5. Been quite happy with the way that gun's been performing. I say that gun is the best budget gun on the market, I think anyway, if you take everything into consideration, price, quality, and the way it sprays. It's got a massive fan on it, and it's only around the $200 mark. I've even seen one on special, it was about 150 Australian dollars. So as far as I know, any American viewers, you can't yet buy them in the US, yet you can go onto eBay, and I've had a few guys say that they've had a bit of luck getting them in from the UK, and it might only cost you sort of even under $200, and that's shipped. So you've got yourself a nice gun there. And I just decided to include just 1 coat of clear just on this fender with the Starterjet 5000 RP. This is only the second time I used it. So the first time I used it was on that hood, second time was on the body, and it's a totally awesome spray gun. I've got another review and demonstration on that gun. Make sure you check that one out. So there you go, this is the car when it's out the front. Still needs a little bit more wiping over. Just what we did was just grabbed another brand new one of those microfiber cloths. Once they get too dirty, as I said, they just don't clean them off quite as well. There's a few little smudges, not so much swirl marks, just a couple of smudges. But all in all, I'm quite happy with how that's come up. Hope I've managed to keep you guys all interested the entire way, but if you're still watching, you obviously have enjoyed watching. I thank you guys for that. Hope you don't forget to hit that big thumbs up button, and I'll give this car a bit of a rev up for you guys, a bit of a look under the hood as well. So, BA Ford Falcon, Australian built Ford. I'm not 100% sure on the year it was built. It was sort of probably 2010, around that era. There you go, 260 kilowatt, 4 litre engine. This guy's obviously done a fair bit of work under there, that's not all factory. We replaced the headlight for him, a couple of globes, a few of the fog lights. Put it all back together, and yeah, considering the way it came in, the owner was totally wrapped with it. So you always aim to please our customers, and most of the time we've kept everyone happy. So. Hope you guys have all enjoyed watching this video. If you've missed these videos here, make sure you check them out. A couple of my favourites. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.